Meanwhile, backing up.
Let's crack on with business. So have we got a live link now? We have. Good evening, everybody. People that may be following us online. I'm Councillor Ian Edwards. I'm leader of the council and chairman of Cabinet. There being no members of the public present in the meeting, we will dispense with the normal health and safety notices, but I would ask colleagues to remember to have their phone turned to silent. And this is to advise those following us on YouTube that the meeting is in two parts, a part one and a part two. We will break between part one and part two, which are the private and confidential matters, and we will be breaking the YouTube link at that point. If I may take you to agenda item 1, apologies for absence, Mark.
Thank you. Apologies from Councillor Lavery, Councillor Goddard.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest in matters before the meeting. Any additional interests? None indicated. Thank you. To approve the minutes of the last Cabinet meeting, those minutes are on pages 1 to 22. Are they agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 4, that is to confirm that there are items of business in both part 1 and part 2. And as I say, we will break the meeting between those two parts. We'll now move on to agenda item 5, the substantive agenda items, and that is the Annual Education Standards Report. Councillor Susan O'Brien.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to, as you suggested, propose agenda item 5, which is the Annual Education Standards Report for 22-2023. So just to be mindful that this report is generally for noting, because it is a year behind and with the outcomes now. So the annual report focuses primarily on attainment, progress and achievement of outcomes for the previous academic year, indicating how our education system in the borough is performing. This report once again signifies the legacy issues that educational establishments are working with following COVID-19, and although they have responded positively and with resilience, they are still working through the issues of lower attendance, higher persistent absence, speech and communication delays in younger children, and continued challenges around SEMH, which is social, emotional and mental health, across all educational settings and in as well as the early years settings. Ofsted have caught up with their backlog of inspections, and Hillingdon remains in line with national outcomes. I can tell you that 92% of Hillingdon schools during that time were judged as good or outstanding. The recommendation, there is only one, which is on page 23 of the Cabinet paper, and is to note the key findings of the Annual Education Standards Report. I therefore move.
Thank you. Is the report noted?
It is.
Thank you. Agenda item 6, the counter-fraud corporate-related investigative policies. In Councillor Goddard's absence, I will introduce this. This is a suite of policies that shape the way that we investigate matters of fraud, money laundering and other criminal matters. They stand on their own, but provide transparency to the public of how we go about these areas of business, and also provides a framework for the council and council officers. What it doesn't disclose is the success that this team has, and the product recently in returning and recovering very substantial sums of money and assets. For example, they've recently been recognised nationally for their achievements. I am told that they have uncovered fraud within the homelessness, where tenants had not taken up the allocated temporary accommodation, but we had been paying the bill as claimed by the landlord. We've recovered more than 100 properties. The council tenants have been subletting. So all in all, these guys are punching well above their weight and delivering fantastic outcomes for the council and, more importantly, for Hillingdon's residents. These 4 policies just explain how they do business, what shapes them. Of most relevance, I think, to the typical resident will be how it impacts on our use of CCTV and the considerations we have to make before we can employ that as an investigative method. Are the policies agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 7, the school organisation plan. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you once again, Leader. So we have agenda item 7, the school organisation plans. This report provides Cabinet with an overview of the educational landscape in Hillingdon, provides a summary of current and projected pupil demand in primary, secondary and in special school settings, and the data for the council to plan for future schools for within Borough. The council is an educational authority and therefore must manage school places and the fine balance of sufficiency versus surplus. This document sets out the place projections over the next 7 years to ensure that we are managing our schools' estates properly. Over the past decade, we have had to build or increase the size of capacity of our schools, and as the trend is now in decline, we are looking at how we can manage capacity by creating either bulge places in schools or repurposing the available spaces due to the falling school rolls. By 2026, we will have reduced PAN by 18 forms of entry in the primary school sector, and we need to ensure that it is ready for and if we do have a next wave of increased birth rates. What's also apparent is the growth in children who attend special schools or who require special educational needs school placement. Steadily since 2014, you would have heard me propose a number of projects to Cabinet regarding the building of extra capacity of special educational needs places in Borough to accommodate the rise in this area. Many of these places are in our mainstream schools, and we have created a number of specialist resource provisions and designated units that are now available, and 71 children currently are benefiting from these places this year, only this year. This report highlights a number of areas whereby our schools will change and have to change and to become flexible within the educational landscape. We have already seen since 2010 a number of schools convert to academy status, some either single academies or more are entering into larger multi-academy trusts or creating MATs within the borough themselves. Others are using looser agreements as well as having to consider collaboration of sorts, whether it's a federated governance model or amalgamating infants and junior schools into all through primaries. This is a really useful and important document and also a live document, so this will be updated. It provides quite granular data and really quite an interesting report. The recommendations are on page 160 of the Cabinet paper, and that is to agree this school organisation plan and for publication today, and also to agree the school organisation plan being updated and presented to the Cabinet portfolio member, relevant select committee and schools annually with the latest data and forecasts. I therefore move.
Thank you very much. Could I ask the Chief Executive to just particularly take back the thanks to the Director of Education and send Ellie Preston for this report. We receive many reports in the course of our business, and this one has stood out as a very strong, informative, useful report. And Abby should be thanked and congratulated on it. Colleagues, the report agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 8, the monthly Council Budget Monitoring Report, month 11. In Councillor Goddard's absence, I will read into record the report that he has submitted. He states, this report, which is set out at pages 217 to 242 of the pack, deals with the Council's projected results for the financial year to the 31st of March 2024, as they stood at the 29th of February 2024, that is month 11 of the financial year. The General Fund revenue account continues to indicate a small underspend of £2,000 against the budget. This is consistent with the reported position at month 10. Councillor Goddard has previously reported the existence of additional cost pressures amounting to £3.6 million, which relate to the continued increases in demand from homelessness, looked after children and adult social care. These projected additional costs will be absorbed within earmarked reserves, which are currently projected to amount to £10.1 million at the 31st of March 2024. However, a surplus on our collection fund of £4.1 million has been identified, and we will recognise the vast majority of the benefit in the year 2024-2025. This represents an improvement of £286,000 on the position projected at month 10. In addition to the earmarked reserves, we also have unallocated general balances amounting to £26.8 million. So in total, we are continuing to project £37 million of reserves at our disposal at the end of the year 2023-2024. Our existing programme of savings for that year is unchanged from the previously reported, and we will ultimately achieve our entire target of £22.8 million. The forecast for the general fund expenditure for the financial year has been updated and is now indicating an underspend of £38.4 million, with anticipated expenditure expected to amount to £912 million. The vast majority of this expenditure, the underspend, is proposed to be rephased into next year. The overall impact of inflation and ever-increasing demand for housing and social care continues to be a backdrop of stagnant central government funding and placing the general fund under pressure, albeit that our financial position remains robust and sound. The Council is currently discussing with the Department of Education as to its ring-fenced deficit position on the dedicated schools grant, and whilst these discussions continue, the DfE has suspended the safety valve agreement and the agreed payments due from the DfE amounting to £2.5 million. This has now caused the adverse movement in the dedicated schools grant, which is now projected to stand at a deficit of £29 million at the end of the year. The housing revenue account continues to project a full year outturn, which is identical to budget at this stage, and the housing revenue account capital expenditure for the year remains projected at £84 million, which is an underspend against budget of £500,000, the vast majority of which will be rephased into next year. I therefore move recommendation of the report set out on page 218. Recommendation 2 is detailed in part B of the report and is on pages 241 and 242. This comprises 5 financially orientated recommendations itemised A to E. I draw attention to recommendation C, the use of £10 million general capacity contingency to fund the continuing project to create additional special educational needs within the borough. The remaining recommendations all relate to the acceptances of grants and are self-explanatory. I also move those recommendations. Colleagues, so for clarity, there's recommendations in part 1, page 218, and recommendations in part B, pages 241, 242. Are those recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 9 is a public preview, a report public preview of matters to be considered in private. This is merely intended to enhance our transparency of those issues that must be discussed and decided in confidence. Will give far fuller information than otherwise would have been available, and the decision will also be published in due course. If that report noted?
Noted.
Thank you. We're now going to part B, so we'll break the link. Thank you very much.